Good evening. Welcome to the Oz and Mini podcast, episode 23. Notice today we have some new artwork made by our co host.
Which is myself, yes. I spent a bit more time on this artwork. It needed an update.
Yeah,
So I'm glad I
because
could provide that.
we aged. Um,
Yeah.
but also it's because I get a nice, lovely scarf now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, this is our new artwork coming forward for the foreseeable future. Obviously, we still have the furry one in case we talk about furry subjects. We haven't done that
Yep.
in a while, but tonight's not one of the
True.
nights that we'll be doing that. Tonight, we will be talking about movies, and more specifically, um, just in general. When you're a child, you'd sometimes you'd have movie parties where you'd go to the movies with your friends. Other times, you'd sit at home watching movies on like whatever they had on terrestrial TV at the time, or in your case, digital TV, because my God, I lived in the crossover year. Um,
Yeah, you did.
yes, and because of that, it means that we are somewhat in a um, different generational situation, but not really.
But we'll
It's
make good, varied content.
yeah. Um, but yeah, it is what it is, and obviously we therefore had very different experiences watching movies, and
Mhm.
also just a note, we are joined by yet another guest. Guest we have Chazza,
Hello. Yes, it's me.
and and
Great guy, great friend.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you here.
Ra.
I'm excited to be
Um,
here.
and today, obviously, we know what we're talking about. First thing I want to ask, um, first would be our lovely guest. What I don't like just any sort of movie that like immediately pops out to you now that you remember watching as a child.
I mean, as a child, I was always like, I suppose it was always the movies that were kind of different to, it was ones that different from real life. So, like, The Lion King was one of my favourites back when I was a child.
Mhm.
I can remember sitting there and watching it and thinking, Jesus, how have they? Because I was a dumb child at the time. I was like, how did they get real lions and stuff to do this? I was like, how do they make them look so different and weird? But it was always the movie that I could watch and feel happy about watching because it was always there. And I had it on DVD. It was perfect. It's just perfect for a night if I wanted to watch something.
The
So
Lion King. The first thing
It's a
I
good
think.
chill film. I'll give you that. I like it. Definitely.
And I mean, to be fair, with The Lion King, it was released in '94. So to think that, I think it was like probably like
Wow.
10 years ago, 10 years later, you guys were watching it or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, it lived a long legacy.
I mean, to be fair, quite a
It
lot
still
of
is.
the earlier animated Disney films, most of them do actually live quite long. I mean, to be
Mm.
fair, there are some scenes that still in Lion King that you just like, not you might not necessarily have watched it, but there's still some sort of like cultural references that come out to this day. Like for example, when what's that small cub at the time when they get
Simba.
when Simba gets lifted in the air. Yes, you can tell.
See who the true fans are.
yes,
And it's like he gets lifted in the air, and it's just like as I feels like it starts with the sunrise and Savenya.
Oh, we got a demonstration.
Yes, but obviously later on, I remember specifically later on in life, in secondary school, um, I had a geography teacher, um, and he's a fan of Tottenham Hotspur, and he one time he brought this this Lion King scene up, and at he said, why on earth at why on earth at the start of Lion King you hear um the Arsenal manager's name, and then it and then for some reason the guys just start singing, as per usual it goes Arsene Wenger, but because the manager at the time was Arsene Wenger, um sounding similar,
Wow.
yeah, let's just say when you go to an all boys school, most of them know the football references, so most of us started laughing. I started laughing because I got it as well. Um, so yeah, it was at the time. God, it feels weird. Um, and
All
yeah,
those boys.
what do you, to think that I don't think there are. I don't think all you know boys nowadays would one be getting this reference, but two, more importantly, like would be in that position where like most of the people there are into football and stuff. Um,
Probably still happens
oh yeah,
today.
there's quite a lot still, but it's not as prominent
Yeah.
as I was about to say it's not as prominent as it used to be. I think. Not 100% sure,
This is so off topic.
but the idea is it's like Disney films have a load of cultural references that come out of it,
Yeah.
and it like these films aren't quite timeless to say the least.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
it's
I
just
agree.
like you know it's Walt Disney animation, and they made like these films like Mulan. Why is Mulan's
Hmm.
the first one to come into my head?
It's a good film.
Yes, where you eat rice porridge. Um, uh,
Is that the only thing they do in the film?
I mean, for crying out loud, that like it's making like this, like Mulan, obviously making this. I didn't watch Mulan, by the way, but it's like making this like old
That's how
folk
much you
story
know.
into sort of like this. It's just like making this old sort of like plot into something that's more you know friendly for children, because there's obviously
Mm.
animated and stuff. And I mean, obviously, I find it interesting that you've got. I mean, obviously, you Mulan is comes with this little mascot, not mascot. You know what I mean? Sidekick, like yeah, it was a Mushu, yeah.
You are educated.
Yes, Mushu being played by Eddie Murphy.
He can tell you who's in the film, but he's never watched it.
Yeah, I know. No, because I just remember,
You
obviously.
surprised me.
Yes, of course. But like all these animated films came in like the Disney Renaissance, or was it like the 90s,
Hmm.
and 1989 for the Little Mermaid. But you had I'm on the Wikipedia article. You had like some of you guys who are listening will have heard these films like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the
Yeah.
Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, Mulan, and Tarzan.
Yep.
And it's like these films came out of there, and like you remember these films to this day, because a lot of like it's like, for example, it's like The Little Mermaid. You have Ariel, you have
Under the sea.
yes, it was main, yeah, exactly. You had
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast, the aforementioned song Beauty and the Beast, um, Aladdin with a cheeky monkey, and wasn't the genie Robin Williams? Yes, it was.
Honestly, no idea.
Yes, it was. Um,
You know what is really interesting about Disney films?
go on.
Is that we're probably going to show our children these.
Yeah.
Is that not like weird to you? That a film, that
Film
these
we
films
watched
are
growing
never
up.
going to die? Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, good films that you watch as a child usually end up
Mm.
being passed on through Like I remember, generations. Like I remember watching, what is it? The Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But
That's a
like
classic.
the classic Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too.
And these have been passed down on to us, and we're gonna, hopefully we're gonna end up giving it to the others that we make.
Are there any other older style films from like your parents' generation that you have watched as a child, not as a child?
I mean,
Chazza, do you got any?
there was, I don't know, when it was like stuff like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, stuff like that.
Yes. Yes,
The
yes, yes,
old
yes, yes.
like 60s and 70s films.
Mm,
Chitty Chitty Bang
um,
Bang. Why is the first thing I think of is Germany or Austria?
well, it's not.
About a flying car.
Yes, I know.
Oh, it's great. I
Just
love Chitty
I
Chitty
never
Bang Bang.
got the point of the movie. It was just fun. It was just
Entertaining. Quality
yeah.
content.
Oh, I know what I mixed it up with. Ugh.
What?
Not Songs of Praise. The other one.
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music. There we go.
That was also a banger. Sound of Music was oh
The hills are alive.
yeah. And Mary Poppins as well. All of them
Yes.
old ones.
Oh yes, the Von Trapp family. Oh. Now I know why I remember The Sound of Music. The dark historical past behind it.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't know why. That just makes me sound dark, doesn't it?
Congratulations. I don't know what else to say to you.
There was the late 2000 films, which what like 2008, 2000 and other stuff around that was like Wally and Cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There were some good ones. Wally was up there with my favourites as well.
I have watched Cars. They've
I've
They've
watched
gotten.
Cars too.
Poor you.
Hi. I never found it that.
Cars got progressively worse over time.
I didn't watch the planes version, which came out
Oh,
a couple of years later. I never watched that. But I did watch Cars.
yeah, I watched Cars. Yes, Cars 2 wasn't like. Oh, it just no. Cars 2 was
Oh, I didn't
no.
watch that.
Cars 3 is like
How many
okay.
did they do? 3?
Cars 3 or the James Bond reference said that whatever his
No,
name
no, no,
was.
no, no, no. That's Cars 2. Cars 2 was the one that had the secret missions and the
Oh, the
explosive queen and stuff like
one
that.
that just went complete like just nowhere.
Yeah.
Went from having a nice wholesome kind of like the Cars 1 into Cars 2, and it's like Jesus.
Yeah, and then Cars 3 brought
Oh,
it somewhat back as like, hey, um Cars it just feels weird like me McQueen all of a sudden feeling old. Um
Mm.
Lightning McQueen, yes.
like McQueen being old and retiring.
I probably missed out the best film, and I'm ashamed. Finding Nemo. That
Yes,
was
and
Hey,
during that time yes, just keep swimming. Ellen DeGeneres just telling us to keep swimming. Um, God, it feels weird knowing that you had a small fish being
Not gonna
lost.
lie, Finding Dory was also good.
I didn't watch
I
Finding
was
Dory.
surprised by that one.
I don't think I watched Finding Dory.
I haven't watched Finding Dory because I haven't found the need to find Ellen DeGeneres. Also because I couldn't be bothered.
No, I watched it only because it was offered to me.
By who?
Friends.
All right. You have friends.
Sorry,
I'm
have
joking.
them.
Of course you have
So
friends.
mean.
But yeah, don't worry. In reality, the co-hosts are best friends, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is why we do this every week, or otherwise we'll be at each other's throats by now.
Yeah, we would.
But yeah, I'd say yeah, with Finding Nemo, I found personally it was like I watched it. I like most of these films I never really watched in the cinema. But I do remember watching something in the cinema, but I don't remember what film it was. That's the issue. It's like all these childhood films I don't remember watching in the cinema. I just either watching it on like terrestrial TV. For you guys, it's
Mm,
BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, or
yeah,
Carlton Television in my time, Channel 4 and Channel 5.
all those, yes.
Yes. And yeah, it's like oh yeah, and then also you have Film 4. That's where I used to watch like the shows like and this is Songs of Praise again. Um why am I getting that mixed up? Um the film with the Von Trapp family. Why am I not remembering this?
Can't help you. Don't really know what you're on about.
Trying to think of Sound of Music again.
Yes, thank you. It's the Sound of Music, and I always forget the title. It's like I remember the song "The Hills Are Alive" with the Sound of Music, but it's like it's there, and I don't remember it for some reason. Great,
Mm.
my brain's not associating well. But I've noticed that alongside Finding Nemo, which was a pretty decent film, you know, where you get the cultural references and they stick with you. On the other side,
Mhm.
you had the more forgettable film, Shark Tale.
Oh, that was that. Oh no.
Yes, Shark Tale.
Oh no.
I,
That's,
I
that's
have never
re-
heard of this film.
It's
the
when
one with Will Smith,
yes, it's the one with where Will
Mm,
Smith is a
Angelina Jolie,
boisterous.
Jack Black.
It's a boisterous, uh, illegitimate child. Basically, he's um. I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to say. He's not a great person. Um. But yeah. Oscar was a. Was like claiming to have slain the shark and then accidentally doing so anyway.
what is the plot of this story? Sorry, what?
Oh, it's
He
confusing as
fantasized,
hell.
yeah. He fantasized about being rich, and then
Okay.
his dad. He got teased because his dad used to scrub whale tongues, and then
Mhm.
oh, it's just weird that
It sounds it.
uh,
It had a vegetarian shark,
yeah,
but like
and
great
then
Hell
white
yeah.
shark.
a shark chased the main character, and an anchor fell on the shark's head, killing it. And he's like, "Oh, I killed the shark."
Hence why I'm now now we officially say that Oscar is no word of it a great big liar.
Okay. Uh, yeah.
Yeah,
When was that made? Like 2000? Yeah, 2004.
yeah, about the same time as the Pixar film of Finding Nemo.
Yeah, and Shrek 2.
Oh yeah,
All these
Shrek.
Shrek
Shrek.
films.
Shrek
I
is
never,
I've
I never really liked Shrek, if I'm being honest, to start with, because he used to scare me. A big
I
fat
can't
green
talk.
ogre bloke. I was like, oh, okay.
like I'd say Shrek is interesting because I'd say Shrek is like a more it's like it's gonna say a children's film that's not as much for children because it's like it gives you a load of cultural references um you know from when they were released and stuff that have aged well, pop culture
Hmm.
references, obviously ranging from the small puns on like things like Starbucks to and whatever stuff like that to uh what is it? They've made. I think it was like they had a slow motion fight scene in one of the films, and it references Matrix. But if you don't watch the Matrix, if you never watched the Matrix, you still think, oh yeah, it's a cool slow motion fighting scene, sort of thing.
But I
It's
think that's what makes it unique
yeah,
and enjoyable for the whole family.
yeah. That's one.
So,
That's
oh,
Shrek.
okay.
That's Shrek.
Yeah, that's just what I'm saying.
Because the kids will think, "Oh, it's so cool," and then the adults will be
It's
like,
an
"Oh,
ogre.
it's so relatable," or
Yeah,
"Oh,
exactly.
the guys are I don't know." And obviously, there's obviously a lot of hidden. There's quite a few hidden jokes in Shrek, which are suggestive. But obviously, because they're suggestive, they're not blatant, which means people will get it or people won't get it. It's fine.
Child friendly.
It's child friendly still. And then another film. Well, uh, wasn't it made by DreamWorks?
Which one?
Shrek.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, DreamWorks
Don't
Animation.
take my word, I think so.
Yeah. It's like I think you guys might remember a bit more like Madagascar.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes, Madagascar. Because you like to move it.
I like to move it, move it.
And it's you remember these sort of like these animated films. Yeah,
Of
Madagascar.
course.
Yeah, because these are the films that sort of like bring out bring out uh fun storylines to you.
yeah.
Hmm.
To think that nowadays the children of our the children that are like 10 years younger than us, we'll be talking about the Boss Baby and Trolls.
They're just
Trolls.
I I can never really grasp any of them because all of a sudden they have to have all of these things in it. They have to have it's gone from everything's free to having to have what one gay person or something that shows someone being like that.
Mm.
You mean
And it
cultural references that not non-cultural
Like
references, more like
diversity.
yeah,
inclusive,
it has to be
forced
diverse.
diversity? You mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you have natural diversity, it just happens. Like for example, um you like I was gonna say going straight on the other side, you're going to end up with Mulan, where you just have a Chinese story being played by Chinese American actors. Fair enough, but it's like when you're trying to wedge a story, wedge stuff in, it doesn't work. But when you naturally have it there, it's like, oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
a man who just so happens to be gay or something like that. You know what I mean? It's not.
Mm.
Yeah,
So different.
yeah, it's different. It's different to have. It's a diff. There's a difference between like forcing a narrative and just be like, oh yeah, this guy just so happens to be gay, he likes this guy, and it's really nice and dandy. It's fine.
Happy families.
They don't have to be families. They just be two guys together having fun.
No, yeah, I know, but you get what I mean.
I'm trying not to say anything worse than that.
Yeah.
But also, it's like to think that these animated films are the kind of films that we watched. And did you guys any? I mean, I know maybe many you might have not, but Chazza, did you watch any sort of like films? When you were a child in the cinema?
There was a few times, but they were for like films that were just coming out, and it was weird because I don't. It would be like the whole family, so it would never be one film that one of us wanted to watch. It'd be a film that all of us wanted to watch. So
Mm,
we barely ever went, as we all had different tastes.
yeah.
Because my dad never really liked the animated rubbish. Well, so he put it that way. He was, yeah.
I
It
mean,
was
what
just
did you guys watch as a family? Considering I never really got to have that situation.
it was it was like probably, oh, now you're making me think.
A
I
put you
mean,
on
I
the
know what
spot
my
there.
answer is.
I mean, I remember going to see Frozen when it first came out.
Wow,
Hey.
that makes me feel young, old. Makes me feel old.
I was gonna say.
That makes me feel
Yeah.
old. When Frozen came out,
Oh,
I
I think it was
felt it was
during
just
English too.
blatantly annoying
Yeah.
because I wanted to just let Frozen just disappear, let it go.
wow.
Frozen 2013. Yeah, no wonder I found it annoying. It was 2013. It was only 7 years ago.
Wow.
I was 16. Of course, I would have
Yeah,
found
no
it
wonder
annoying.
you didn't appreciate it.
The thing is, it's like even then, like I was watching the stuff that I was watching prior, like your Shreks, your as like the latest, but like the earliest bits, like I didn't watch Bambi when I was younger,
No, neither did I.
considering it's like from the 40s. Um, I I did I remember watching Snow White and Seven Dwarfs. I remember watching
Yes.
Pinocchio and watching the nose grow. Um,
Do
Fantasia.
you know what? Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, you know what else is a classic?
Gone.
Up.
Yes. Yes.
Again,
Up.
Up is a film that was much later than um my time.
Up was like
2009, which
the
is
Jesus.
thing.
which is like after when I stopped watching films in that
Wow.
sense.
2009.
Yes.
Damn.
Wait,
Christ, I was 5.
wait,
That was
what?
I was smaller than I am now, which
There
is
was
hard
a
to believe.
2011 film.
Congratulations.
There was a 2011 film called Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh is banging. Don't even
Oh yeah,
just
I think they
don't get
did
me
a
wrong. Winnie the
remake
Pooh's
of
good. It's
it.
just they were making films
Guys,
like
I have another classic.
what?
Paddington Bear.
I
I
remember
watched
watching the
Paddington 2.
original Paddington Bear, like actual like you know the stories and stuff like that before you had the films. Uh,
Oh, now I watch the films.
I didn't watch the
That
films.
was
I
that
had the
was my time
books.
though.
Um,
I
I
had the books too. I did have the books too.
Yeah, and then the not the film, but like the TV series.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh,
They did a TV series.
yes, in 1989, 1990 they had one. The Adventures of Paddington Bear in 1997. Um, yeah. Uh,
Wow,
yeah. Uh,
didn't know that was a thing.
The 1989 one was a co-production with Central Independent Television. So basically ITV. And the 1997 one was produced by Sinar, which became Cookie Jar Entertainment, which it doesn't exist anymore. And then you had the BBC Paddington television series. I just remember watching the latter two. I think the 1997 one I remember watching, and that's how I got to know Paddington Bear, which explains why I have in my bedroom, like on the top shelf, I have on a top shelf where I have a lamp. I also have some hats, and I have a plushie of Paddington Bear.
Aww. He's still a child on the inside, guys.
And I just have it on display. If I was a child on the inside, I'd be hugging it, and I don't. Although,
I bet you do.
talking, you wish.
Go on.
You really wish. Next to it is, next to my lamp, however, is a very weird Experiment 626. It's Lilo and Stitch. It's Stitch. Does anyone remember Lilo and Stitch? 2002.
I didn't watch
I
it.
never watched it. I never watched it.
Probably because it came out in 2002.
I mean, to be fair, you guys were watching things that were old in 2002 and like things like that.
Yeah, but if my parents didn't watch it,
So
high chance I didn't.
Lilo and Stitch, I just remember it existing, but also it was just like, hey, yeah, it's just this weird situation where it's like some random genetic experiment lands itself in Hawaii for some reason, but like not just normal Hawaii, just like a stereotypicalized version of Hawaii.
With the people in the grass skirts,
Say again?
like people in the grass skirts,
Yeah,
like that version of Hawaii.
some of that. There was some of that, yeah. It's just weird. Like some of these childhood films, like you'd think to yourself now, when you go into thinking about it now, you just think to yourself, what on earth were you thinking?
You know what is a really creepy, but actually something I genuinely grew up watching and loving?
Go on.
Bagpuss. Is that a film? It always came in a
No,
CD
Bagpuss came in a
first, but
bag.
I always felt like it might have been a film. To me, it was a film.
No, it was
Quite
just
long.
a television series.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a film.
But they came out on VHS.
Yes.
So that's why everyone remembers Bagpuss. It's called remembering from last week's podcast where you talked about Bagpuss.
Did I mention it again?
Yes, you did.
See, good memories of Bagpuss.
No, it's more good memories of the podcast.
No, clearly not.
Clearly,
I'm doing well.
you're doing well.
There was
Really.
also there's very very epic films that were the funny kind of serious films. Like you had the whole Johnny English, the line of Johnny English films, which were absolutely banging. They were.
Oh well.
Johnny English, where you decide, hey, let's make Mr. Bean a secret agent, and then
Yeah,
name him
Mr.
Johnny
Bean and
English.
James Bond had a child. Yes.
It's just like the absurdity of. I was about to say the absurdity of incompetence, which ends up being great. It's like funny incompetence.
Yeah.
That's the. But because the way it's comedy, it's like because it's the way how Rowan Atkinson plays the character Johnny English. It means that you can deliver because it's so it's so like he can make incompetence comedic. Because he did that with
Yeah.
Mr. Bean, and then therefore you can do that with Johnny English, because obviously it's basically what if you put Mr. Bean with a bit more vocabulary in a secret agency in a British secret intelligence service with Well, am I now remembering the Archbishop of Canterbury's behind being shown?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was
that's
getting
the scene
tattooed.
that's just that's just popped up into my head. But like not just any, just like this exact scene of that happening. Making wasn't it making a the villain was going to make a prison out of an island called Great Britain, um, or something like that. And then
Something like that.
Johnny English was absurd, but you liked it because Johnny English was a likable character considering his incompetence.
Yeah.
And
Just funny.
yes, because it's yeah, because it's funny. I was gonna say yeah, because it's like you can't really like there aren't many actors that can portray that well,
Mm.
and then you pair that up with whatever Johnny English is, you end up with hilarious stuff.
Yeah, it's great. Quality content.
Quality content that you'd watch in a film, a cinema. Now I remember.
Kind of a.
I,
Oh.
I remember watching that in a cinema. Cinemas. Back in the day when they used to actually scare you before you watched a film. In the UK until about 2000 and I think it's like 2009 maybe.
I got to know what you're going with this.
2009, yes, until 2009, the 1st of January 2009. The adverts prior to these starting was in like Cineworld, and I think it was like Odeon as well. I watched it in Cineworld. And what it was is this advertising company called Carlton Screen Advertising. They before every film you have the adverts, and the adverts always had these sort of like you had a small scene that says, oh, we are like Wide Eye Media, like what you see nowadays in Views and Odeons and some Cineworlds. But like back in the day when I was watching television cinema back then, you'd have this Carlton doing this because they became Wide Eye Media. Their ident was scary as hell, because you imagine it's just going to set the scene. You're sitting down, you've got your popcorn, it's dark, and then you see a branding iron being put onto some hot coals, and you hear it.
Oh.
Yeah, but you hear it like across in terms of like full surround sound, and it goes food, and then you hear the fizzle of the hot coals, and then the guy lifts the branding iron, and you hear the and then afterwards the branding iron's just brandished straight onto the screen, like really like quickly, and it's just like but like because it's like just in your face. It's in your face. It's when you're a young child, it's scary.
Was this in front of every film?
Yes,
Or just
every film.
because they have like obviously films are age limited, so do they not have different advertisements?
Oh yeah, they have different advertisements for the each film. Like for example, an 18 film would have, I don't know, something about fur coats, and blood, and throwing children around. NSPCC advert. Um,
Fur coats is what got advertised to 18-year-old children. Adults.
18-year-old children. Thanks, Minnie. You're tired. Nah, it was like, a sort of like a Peter sort of, advertisement where, like, fur coats, but it was like fur coats with blood going out of it, and like, ugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
I
like,
didn't go to the cinema, so
I didn't either for 18 films. I just, when you're bored on YouTube during lockdown, you watch cinema idents, and somehow you end up on advertising cinema idents. Because I was watching the Carlton advertising ident, for yeah, just imagine a small child having a basically thinking about having a branding iron being smashed against the screen, and you're just watching that.
yeah, no, it doesn't sound very appealing.
It doesn't either, but guess what? That was the reality from, I'm now looking at the Wikipedia article, from 1996 to 2009.
Nice.
Yeah, Carlton, thanks for scarring the children of the 90s and early 2000s.
Thanks for scarring Oz.
I think it's like me and one of my friends, we started we found this again, and we started watching it. It was just apparently they made that into a 3D film into 3D films as well. So you had the branding iron being smashed against your face, technically.
You're taking this way too personally.
I don't know how that happened, but guess what? That was the reality, and why I never know. But
Oh,
afterwards,
this is so funny.
cinema in the 2000s was weird, because afterwards, in Cineworld, because I used to go to the Cineworld in Feltham, which is in West London, in a leisure complex called Leisure West, and
Oh,
it was just the closest one to where I lived, where my grandparents lived at the time, and right now nowadays I go to the thing next door and play. I've done bowling there. Obviously not now, but like, with some mates not too long ago, actually, only like a year ago, a couple of years ago, sort of thing. And then we
nice.
realized that airport bowl was just better. But back to the cinema experience. After all that, you then go into watching, I don't know, this weird. Think about these like late 90s badly made animated characters in Cineworld, sort of like abusing the rules. They're talking loudly, they're on their mobile phone, sort of thing. And then there's this woman that's just like yeeting them off out of the cinema screen and stuff, like out of the cinema.
What are you on? Are you okay?
I am okay.
What are you talking about? I'm so lost. Advertisements of people yeeting other people out of the cinema screen.
Yes, because it's like not eating them out of the cinema screen, but eating them out of the cinema because they're um, you know, they're being inconsiderate to people who are going to watch the movie, sort of thing. Saying you should not talk, you should not have a mobile phone. By the way, the mobile phone that they used was the old, like the small Nokia brick.
Wow.
Yeah, that's goes to show how old it is.
Wait, they should do those advertisements now.
Those aren't advertisements. Those how nowadays, if you're, for example, because it's the most recent thing I remember, in a view, you're like, sit back, relax, turn off your mobile phone, no distractions, that sort of thing, and now enjoy the movie, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Back in the 2000s, it was nothing like that. It was odd. By the way, this section was done after the Carlton advertising thing. So you had them in succession. 2000s 2000 cinema was weird. You guys don't know about it because
No way. Small children's.
yeah. But for those guys who are more close to about the to the early 20s, mid 20s, you probably remember this. If you don't, if I ever showed it properly, you'd have if I ever linked it anywhere or something like that, you would end up with um you'd end up with you know remembering all this stuff.
Just brought back some memories for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, and I've spent
Some
10 minutes talking
nostalgia.
about advertisement idents and Cineworld being weird.
I know.
God, it seems like it's just like I wanted to talk about this, which is why I made this
Yeah.
a title in the first place. Great job, Oswick. Um,
But should we talk about some more, I'm not going to say recent things, but should we ask Chazza, what has been your favourite film of all time, if you have one?
Of all time, there's
Yeah.
well, I was brought up watching that. My dad always used to love watching the Battle of Britain, which was still my genuine favorite is the Battle of Britain because
Mhm.
no matter how many times I watch it, it's just like Jesus. For whenever I think it was, when was it? It
I
was
don't know,
made
but
in, let me check, 1969. It was made, and
wow.
it's
Nice.
just amazing. I've probably watched it 20, 30 times over. It's just such an amazing film. It kind of
Nice.
it taught it what really got me into planes and stuff and
Mhm.
military. It was the Battle of Britain because yeah, I used to watch it alone. It's just 2 hours out of action-packed dogfights and stuff like that, and it's just yeah, it was just amazing to keep watching it over and over again.
Mhm.
And for a film that was made 1969, it was very good quality. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's it really.
Us, do you have a all-time favourite film?
no, just
No.
blatantly no. I'm not
Fair
really a
enough.
movies guy. Don't get me wrong. I like watching movies. I like
Mhm.
watching some movies, but like most of the types of films that I watch nowadays are more, hey, this stuff actually happened, or this stuff is pretty surreal. Sort of like a more, hey, we're looking at this hero sort of guy, but
Mhm.
normal guy hero, um, I haven't watched any of the 9/11 films, uh, for obvious reasons, but I have watched scenes of it, and those scenes sort of interest me, sort of thing. I've watched the film about the A320 that flew into the Hudson River. Do you guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sully, that's the name. Yeah. I watched Sully because I actually I watched the film. I read the investigation report sort of thing, so I'd gone through all of that.
Mhm.
So that's one thing that one that I definitely remember. Another one, like I watched what's the film? I'm trying to think. What's the film with Nikki? Yeah, I watched Rush. Um, not in the film, not in cinema, unfortunately, but I did watch Rush, which was about Formula One. James Hunt
Mhm.
versus Nicky Lauda,
Yeah.
where Nicky Lauda gets burnt in the face during the season.
So he like lost his ear, wasn't it? Yeah, he
He
burnt
lost
his
his
ear off.
ear. Um, he lost his
Wait, for
ear.
real?
Yeah.
Yes. For the rest of his life, his face was, scarred permanently with
Oh my
the
god.
burns. He managed to get he had a horrific crash in 1976, and midway through the season, and he still got back racing, and
Yeah.
you know it's just this. It was a surreal sort of like
Commitment.
yeah. In the 70s, drivers died almost like on a yearly basis.
Oh,
It was
Formula
just
One,
because
like even now,
yeah,
Formula One isn't. You think it's really safe and stuff. They're
I
still.
mean, no, it's really dangerous.
It's still dangerous.
Yeah.
they only just added the halos or so,
Yeah,
which is just to prevent debris from hitting you in the face and stuff.
yeah, because
Yeah, that-
you've seen, how it impacted sort of like, you have feels like one you'd definitely say would be affected would be like when a loose screw from another car hit Formula One driver called Felipe Massa in the head, in the helmet, and
Oh,
don't worry, they're still alive.
okay,
But it's
good.
like you're trying to prevent these sort of like horrific events from happening. But even then, like
Yeah.
motorsport is so dangerous, you could still lose your life. Like the cases of
Mm.
Formula Two in last year, you had Antoine Hubert, who died by virtue of a freak accident because these cars are designed to sustain like one impact. Unfortunately, unfortunately, a speeding car kind of hit the shell as well. The deformed crash structure around him. Again, freak accident. Another driver that's lost his life fairly, like in the past 10 years is um Jules Bianchi. But the
yeah,
fact is, like motorsport back. You think like now it's dangerous, but it's like it's mostly mitigated. Back in those days, it was a fight for your life, and
I feel like we're very off topic.
but it's like, yeah, I know, but it's like I want to talk about just how the fact that
Go on.
the film
Finish your
sort of
bit.
like grasped the what is it the the safe loud Nicky Lauda sort of like campaigning for driver safety sort of thing, and it's like
Mhm.
each of these like the films that I watch seem to be like these sort of like real things that have happened, and then there's always someone there that's
Yeah.
like there's they're fighting for something or they're saving something or that sort of thing.
mm,
Mhm.
Because like the sort of like personality films that are played by Tom Hanks usually, because he like plays half of them.
Mhm.
But yeah, those are the kinds of films I watch now. I like. Oh, and Sonic for some reason. Um, because I never play the games, but I watch Sonic because it's it's Sonic. I like and
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog like my hair. Um,
True.
Asian hair. But it's like Sonic the Hedgehog is a kind of more a film that you would associate with like younger children, younger children, like children would be watching it. Like I remember watching it with some friends of mine. We were watching it, and it was like you'd expect some children, there are quite a few children, and then there's just this bunch of like 17 to 23-year-olds just watching it.
You.
Yeah. And like we had a good time. So it's like, you can still make a film. Just point out, you can still make a film good nowadays. Like, okay, it's like it's not a bad film. I liked it. I mean, I watched
Mhm.
it. I mean, to be fair, I watched it twice because another one of my friends wanted to watch it, and they just had a deal where they could have like cheap movie deals. Like, okay, I'll watch it with you. But it was a good film. It was like it was good enough to feel like, yeah, I can cope with watching it twice, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Minnie, what about you?
Definitely 100% favorite film of all time. Some of you won't be surprised. Avatar.
Avatar.
Now,
Can I paint your face blue?
go for it.
Can I dunk you in
this.
blue paint and just leave you there?
Do you not like it?
Just.
To be honest, I don't want your opinion. Anyways,
That's the point. I want your
this is
opinion.
going to be offensive about it, and I love it too much. Basically, I have watched that film 8 to 9 to 10 times. Too many, okay? And I just love the graphics, and the storyline is so perfect. It's just a beautifully made film, and it was so ahead of its time when it came out, which is incredible. It's just so beautiful, and I love that it's a made-up world, like a made-up planet. I love that it's something different. It's quite distracting from like the everyday world, and it's just such a, I'm gonna say peaceful place, but obviously there's like it still works as an ecosystem, you know. It's just so beautiful. I could watch it forever. And I do, and I will.
Why am I imagining like Avatar? Like the concept of it reminds me of like your general, hey, we ruined Earth enough, so let's go and colonize somewhere else sort of thing. One, but two, it reminds me of the game No Man's Sky for some reason. I don't know why. I've never played No Man's Sky, but it's like No Man's Sky. You end up on No Man's Sky. You end up you're traveling between planets quite essentially. I don't know what else you do in No Man's Sky, but it's just the fact that you're going into these like alien planet sort of like planet places and stuff. So yeah.
Okay. Pretty cute. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like that. Not really, but yeah.
Yeah, just before we go, is there any other films that you guys want to talk about?
Not really. I've just talked about all the films that I watched in my childhood, so.
Fair enough. Minnie?
Yeah. No, I think I'm good.
You think you're good?
Oz?
One thing I do want to say is the sequels of films are usually not as good as the films that they start from.
True.
And if you...
Not always the case, but true.
Can you tell me a case where it isn't true?
James Bond?
James Bond, okay, other than James Bond, because they're like, you can make a shed load of stories out of James Bond. And in case, but like, more franchise sort of things. Like Toy
Finding
Story.
Nemo?
Yes. I've not watched Finding
Dory?
Nemo. But like, what you think of like, Toy Story, they managed to stretch out to 4 films. Cars 2 was not very nice.
No.
The fact that we have 2 incredible films. Lion King was stretched out.
Yeah, that didn't work.
Exactly. You just... You seriously thinking that there was a Bambi 2?
Is there?
Apparently there was.
I didn't even watch Bambi 1. Ooh.
I mean, wow. The fact that in the two... I'm looking back through Disney theoretical animated features, yeah, Winnie the Pooh stories being out there as, like, films. By the way, just to point out, to now think, these sort of like these films that we watched as classics, some of these childhood films that we watched, we continued on watching several times, or In Minnie's case, you just watched Avatar 9 times.
I think it's more than 9, but we don't have to go there.
You've watched it 45 times. Anyway,
Probably.
I'll definitely say, it's like, these sorts of the films that, if you're listening that are about our age, sort of like, you'd be thinking to yourself, right, well, you don't think yourself about it now, but later on in life, if you make a family, you'll be showing these films to your children thinking, hey, these are the films that we watched as a child. Whilst at the same time, you'll then be watching the films that are being brought out in like 10 years time, or even now, but like, now, 10 years time, 20 years time, and you're showing those films to your children, you're thinking to yourself, you're watching these as adults, so you get these like new perceptions of it. And in terms of the cinema experiences have changed to be a hell of a lot less creepy.
I think it was just that one experience that really shocked you, re-traumatized
It
you.
wasn't one experience, it was just like having it constantly there. You know what I mean? Just like watching.
So it was one, just one advertisement that really.
It's not
never
even an
went away.
advertisement, it's just, the ident for the advertisements. The advertisements themselves aren't bad. It's just that you're watching that. It's like, imagine if you're an easily impressionable child. Like, you could be getting nightmares out of it. For me, I just remember it now because it's like, oh, I remember this. Oh, it's cursed. Because I look back at it now and it's just cursed. But yeah, I'd say for you guys listening, cinema is a good place to when you've finished lockdown. Is you want to watch some films, go for it. Watch people be creative. And then remember that you'll be showing your children films like Aladdin, Lilo and Stitch, Frozen for your cases, Moana, and for the furries out there, you'll be watching Zootropolis or Zootopia. I had to.
Yes.
I had to.
I'm surprised we hadn't mentioned it up till now, to be honest.
Mainly because I never watched it.
Oh, I did.
You did? Ooh.
Yeah.
Chazza, did you watch Zootopia? What? In the
No,
UK?
I didn't watch it.
By the way, in the UK, it's called Zootropolis.
Yeah, but I watched it in America.
Ah. Oh, I remember watching films in the US. It's just weird going to like a small town.
It's such a better experience.
No, I just found it weird because the seats were always like, I felt like the seats were always like slightly manky, but not very manky.
Yeah, but the popcorn is amazing.
Oh yeah, the popcorn, because they use artificial stuff in it. It was really nice. Yeah.
Because it's like so fake.
It's so fake it's good. The butter is so fake it's good.
It's exactly what I want.
I know. You don't get that here. You just get like a decently nice salted popcorn.
Too healthy here.
By the way, just to point out, Odeon do the largest popcorns. View's not too bad, and Cineworld is just a rip-off. Those are my opinions of cinemas. I had to.
Yeah. Well done.
Just for recommendation, we are not endorsed by Odeon or any of the other cinema places. And yeah.
Doesn't mean we don't support them.
Yes, by watching films in them.
Yep.
But yeah, we give thanks to Chazza.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No probs. We give thanks to a small mini.
Yeah.
Go watch Avatar tonight.
I genuinely want to. Don't make me.
Do it.
No, I've got
Do it. You've got time still. You've got time still. You always have time.
Funny.
But yeah.
I thank you for hosting it.
Your co-host.
Yes, I can give thanks to you.
Hey. we'll be back next week, I think, and we'll bid you guys a good night.